In the last movie, we saw how curtains had these nice folds in them and such, but they were completely hidden behind the frame of a window. In this particular case here, let's zoom in, the curtains are not so hidden. You can see the bottoms of the curtains. And I have the higher res version here, which we'll just look at. And there we can see that we have these curtains here where we're looking at the back. We see the bottoms, and we see the bottoms of this one. There we go on the inside. First, let's simplify it and just create these curtains as if we're not looking up at them, but looking down at them. That's a little easier. So let's go in and create that effect. Again, I'm going to use my pen tool to start to create my basic shapes, and it might help to give yourself a little guide. So I'm just going to draw a straight line across. This line is going to represent the back part of the curtains, and then I'm going to duplicate it straight down to represent the front part of the curtains. And this is just a guide for myself. I'm now going to go in there and start to draw the actual curtains. Now, I'm going to go in here, and this is going to be the back part. Right here, there's a section of the curtains, and I'm going to kind of now give this a little curve just like that. Now I can go up there and close it off. Now you notice that my path is going beyond the work area. That way it's going to bleed out. In fact, we might even want to give it a little more room so we have plenty of room there to play with. Now, overlapping this one, I'm going to create another path right here. This is going to be the front of my curtain right here. And I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to come down to here, and just below it, create a little curve right there like this. It's a little tiny curve, and you notice that it's not even there. It's got a little curve to it because this is fabric that kind of just falls very loosely. Right there, I'm going to have another piece in back, so I draw a little curvature, just like that. Come up and close it off. All right, so now I got another one here, and let's just move this, give it some room. All right, so now another front fold. Again, it's going to overlap. So come in here and just create this little shape. Just go in there, give it a little curve, and up. And close it. And then again, one in back. Now this one's going to have a different kind of a fold. I'm going to come down here, give it a little curve, and this one's going to just kind of fold into itself back here, like that. And in front. So this one is kind of representing the whole shape folding back. So now I'm going to come down and do a little curve in front. Now keep in mind that if you're really not sure how these things are working, look at your own curtains. Study and see how these folds take place and so on, so you can kind of recreate what you're seeing in reality there. There we go. And then we'll just draw this one big shape back here, which will be the back of the curtain. So now each one of these is going to be handled separately. I'm now going to eliminate these two paths, which were my guides. There's my curtains. Now, if I need to, I can go in there and start to clean these up a little bit. Like this is going back a little too far. So let's just loosen that up a little bit. This is a little too strong of a curve right there. That's looking good. And let's just make this a little bit more of a curve like that. So there's my basic shapes. So now I'm going to go in there and start to create the effects. So I'm going to select all the ones that make up the back right here. These are the ones that make up the back. I'm going to create a layer. And we'll call this back folds. And let's pick a color for our curtains. Let's just say this is a theater curtain, so we'll make them a nice deep red. Say about like that. So I'm going to take that path and go ahead and fill it in that area. So now I'm going to take these three and I'm going to create a layer called front folds and go ahead and fill that path with those. Then this one right here is going to go behind the front folds, but in front of the back folds. So I'm going to create this one, and we'll call it mid-fold. How's that? And in that layer, I'm going to take that one path and go ahead and fill it. So now we're going to start to add a little dimension to this to make it look real. Now, there's a lot of different ways in which we could do this. One way is the good old layer style. So I'm going to go into my layer styles, which I have right here for the back folds. And what I'm going to do is give them inner glow, increase the size on it. See, there we go. So we have this nice thing. And I'm going to pick a much darker tone. So I'm going to pick that red and pick a much darker version of it, just like that. Click OK, and I'm going to say multiply it. So there I have these nice dark tones. Okay, and I might want to just deepen them a little bit and choke it just a little. So I get a little harder edge like that. Click OK. Now, I don't particularly like the way they've fallen in there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the layer style from my layer. So go over here and say create layer. There we go. And then I got the folds. So let me pull back a little bit. Now there are different ways. In fact, I'm going to handle the other ones differently. Now that we have that, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to stretch those folds. I'm going to kind of go in there and say a little scale and scale them up and scale it down. So see what I've done there? Now I've just expanded them so I don't get that dark tone along the bottom there. Click OK, and there we have those nice folds happening. Now this one here, I'm going to go in there and say auto select the layer so I can click on it. There's the mid fold. I'm going to pick that darker tone. Let's go in there and pick that darker red. And with the paintbrush, I'm going to go in there and start to paint that. Now, if you're not really sure how clean you're going to make it, it might help to put it into its own layer. So I'm going to just throw a dark tone right in there like that. There we go. Now, we can then clip that with that layer so that it'll fall right in there and stay in there. We'll do the same thing for the front folds. I'm going to create a layer on top of them where I'm going to start to throw my little folds. At first, I might want to give it that little edge of the folds. So I'm going to go and give it that same kind of a layer style that I gave this guy, but not as strong. So we go into the front folds. I'm going to give them a little inner glow. I'm going to pick that deep red. There we go. Click OK, put it in multiply mode. And in this case, I make them just a little bigger, but really soften it up. I don't want it to be too dark. Just like that, just a little softening. Click OK. Now in that blank layer that I created, I'm going to go in there and add a few additional folds. So I'm going to go in there and make my brush a little smaller, and I'm just going to very lightly click up here and shift click down here. So I added that one little shape right there. I'm going to make my brush a little smaller and do the same thing right here because you can see that it's got this little fold down there. And I'm going to add one on this guy as well. Just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and clip those with the curtain. That's looking good. This guy needs that little dark tone. Let's add one right there. There we go. That's looking good. Now we want a little lightening too. So I'm going to go in there and select the curtains themselves. And this time I'm going to use my dodge tool and make it a little bigger. And just click up here and shift click down here just to add a little highlight. Maybe make it a little smaller and do it one more time just to add a little more of a highlight in there. And we're going to do the same thing in here now. Click up here, shift click down here, shift click up there. What's happening is we're adding these little highlights on this front edge of our curtain. And we'll add one here. Click, shift click, click, shift click. And you can see that I'm just adding a little highlight right along this edge. Might want to bring these up a little more. Now I'm holding down my shift key, which allows me to connect from click to click. Here, click, 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 and I'm holding that shift key. So each time I click, it's connecting it, giving me one long straight line. And there you can see that we've created these nice soft curtain. Now, if you want to add a little texture to this, well, you can. Let's just say we take those folds and we'll give them a filter. We'll just add a little noise. Maybe a 6 would do it, just to give it some texture. Click OK. That looks good. We'll do the same to this. Give it that filter, and the back folds, give it the filter. And there you see that we have a nice little set of hanging curtains.